Welcome to What's Up for Your Children today. So let's, before we get to any questions or anything like that, let's just kind of start in the heart. And there's a lot of energy moving, I will say that today. So let's just notice that first. Let's notice, where is your energy in relationship to your, in relationship to your body, in relationship to your mind, in relationship to your emotions. There we go. And then let's start breathing in 360 degrees. Again, from as far out and around us as we can, right into the heart space. And then we'll exhale out from the heart space, back out 360 degrees. Okay, let's do that one more time. Just breathing into the heart space as if it's the only place where your breath can go. And then exhaling back out 360 degrees. So we're going to go ahead and do this structural piece today too. Like I say, it just feels like there's a lot of movement in the energy. So go ahead and draw a line from about 6 to 8 inches above your head, right down through your crown and down through the center of your body, right out through the root and down into the earth. Go about 6 to 8 inches down into the earth. And let's just have that line of energy represent your multidimensionality. And we're just going to see it as straight and coherent and clear. There we go. And now let's draw another line of energy from outstretched arm to outstretched arm, or outstretched hand to outstretched hand, right through the chest. So the line starts in one hand, runs right down your arm, in right through the heart, out the other side, and down the arm to that hand, representing the masculine and feminine, the left and the right hemispheres of the brain, the polarities or dualities that we live within. And again, just see it nice and straight, clear, coherent. Here we go. The more clear, coherent, stabilized we are in our own energy field, the more that positively impacts the energetically sensitive ones around us, our children, inside and out. Okay, so now let's go right out in front of us, as if there was a line or a point of reference directly out in front of our hearts. And we're going to draw that line from that point right through the heart and then out the back of the heart. Same distance behind us. This line representing our timelines and our trajectories. Okay, so notice how that line is. And we're just going to command it to straight. It's commanding it to straighten, in coherence, in clarity. It's interesting, that line, I don't know if it's just me or if it's the whole group in general, but really pitched up in the front. So just bring it down so it's level, so it's parallel with the ground. Here we go. I'll tell you, that just as a side note, it's almost as if whatever's coming in the not too distant future for each and every one of us doesn't have to do with some kind of very quick acceleration in frequency. Looks like, you know, if we were going out on our timeline from our heart, it's almost like it kind of pitches right up, almost like a rocket taking off. Yeah. And so just for now, we'll take off when we're ready to take off. But for right now, let's just allow that energy to be clear, coherent, stable. Okay, cool. All right. So now one last deep, deep inhale into the center of our heart space. And we'll exhale that energy all the way back out and around 360 degrees. Again, as we become clear, calm, coherent within our own fields, it makes it that much easier for the energetically sensitive kids to do the same. All right, beautiful. All right, so when you're ready, let's just go ahead and open our eyes and yeah, take a nice deep breath with your eyes open too. It really does look like we're getting ready for, maybe it's spring. So there's definitely looks like an energetic takeoff point coming. And I wasn't noticing that right before I got on the call. So I have a feeling it has something to do with you guys. So Sharon, do you have questions today?
It says, as my son has been sharing messages about his soul purpose and teaching us about multidimensionality, we have been having questions about how to safely share that with our friends and family. Thank you.
Mm. You know, especially in this energetic climate, I would just hold on to it for yourselves for right now. I would build coherence in that. I would build clarity in that. I would build not just awareness of it, but experience of it in your own, you know, this is what I know, this is what I'm capable of, you know, this is how it manifests in our daily lives. And and really give yourself permission to know that and experience that first. It just makes it so much easier once you do go out into the world and share yourself authentically, to have that as a base within you. And we know right now, especially with people are a little polarized in general right now. And on the one hand, they're looking for confirmation of that there's more to any human being than kind of meets the eye. So they're looking for confirmation about that on the one hand, and on the other side of things, they are kind of in disbelief of just about everything. They're not sure what to believe right now. So I would hold on to it for you all first. And when you feel really solid in it, especially when you feel like you're not saying it from a place of needing validation of it, or wanting validation of wherever you are, wherever your child is in his capacities, then that's when I would start talking about it. When it's just kind of matter of fact, um, you'll be really well received from that perspective. So anyway, hope that's helpful.
Hi, so I feel like I'm doing well learning not to react in negative ways to my son's erranisms and behaviors, keeping love in my heart, but there's no change in his behaviors. I wonder what I am missing.
Well, I think you I think you just said it. So a lot of times when we go into when we go into doing love so that we can change somebody else, um, where we've missed a little step. So it's really not about being loving or doing love, or even being loving in a situation with the intent on changing somebody else's behavior, right? That's really no different than, well, if I say the right word or if I give the right, that just again, it's a I feel uncomfortable when you're like this, so I'm going to be loving and kind in hopes that you won't be like that, right? So let's just make a little bit of a shift here, and I think you'll notice more difference. So when something is going on behaviorally between you and your child, and it's bringing up this desire or to be loving toward him, in hopes that something will change. Instead of doing that, go right to yourself and ask yourself, what is it that I need in this moment? And be loving and kind toward that, right? So that takes out that takes the and it's so easy to do this. It's so easy to kind of go, okay, if I'm more loving and kind, then my child will stop having these behaviors. Eh, In some ways, that's true, provided that loving kindness is really just coming from a place of that's authentically how you feel and where you are in that moment. And if we're not authentically there in that moment, that's not a problem either. We just need to go to the part of ourselves that is feeling so uncomfortable around whatever uh, challenges are attempting to be faced, and let's be loving and kind towards that. Okay, I think that's when you're going to really notice that something shifted in the outer landscape, because we know that the outer landscape will be reflective of the inner landscape. So I hope that makes sense. It's a us, you first. Yeah. And usually, if we're not seeing any change externally, it's because number one, we're looking for it. And number two, the part of us that really needs to be supported and loved um, within us hasn't been yet. Yeah. I hope that helps.
Next question. So, our son has asked us to share his message. So, how would that honor him if we are holding the info? We don't feel like we need validation, but also don't want to shut out some of the opportunities to help other families with their child, which is one of the things we are doing right now.
Cool. Yeah. So, yeah, if you have a nonverbal, semi-verbal child and he's asking you or she's asking you to share that information out in the world, um, by all means do that. And again, when you share that information, that's an intention coming directly from your child. And when you share that, share it. Again, share it in such a way, whether you're putting it out as a blog or you're putting it out as a video or you're sharing it somewhere, social media or wherever you plan on with other parents, wherever you plan on sharing it, share it. But again, just be very aware of how you're feeling as different information comes back from that share. Some people may hear it and love it and be amazed by that. Notice how that feels in your body. Some people might have no idea what you're talking about and be not believe that it's accurate or whatever. Notice how that feels in your body. So, yeah, but if your child's asking you to put it out, by all means, put it out there in the world. Um, they usually have a really good sense of when that can be received too. So then it becomes, especially as you, the parent, as the intermediary between your child's world and the world, what you want to pay attention to is as you give that information out to the world, how is it feeling when it comes back? Yeah. Because if your child is uh, aware enough to say this needs to be out in the world, they're also aware enough to be able to take the reflections of what comes back. So we don't want to necessarily have to take those on for them. I hope that helps.
Okay, next question. How to protect ourselves from intrusive thoughts of a low frequency that come in the presence of our sensitive children? And how do we process or clear these thoughts while in their presence and try to shift the frequency of what is being shared and picked up by them?
Okay, so if I get this question accurately, you're saying that when you're in the presence of your children who have picked up other thoughts and feelings and all this other stuff, and then you're ending up picking that up yourself, how do you clear that? Is that what you're asking? Or how do you keep that coherent? Yeah, okay, cool. All right, so again, you know, we're we're really having to become adept at our own energy fields and noticing our own energy fields first. So, regardless of what field of energy you're in, whether it's your kid's field of energy or you've just walked into a grocery store or something, let's pay attention to what is going on energetically internally, what is going on in our thoughts, in our emotions, in our the physical sensations of our body. And whatever we notice, if it's a negative thought, let's say, we literally can simply intend to transmute that energy, to clear that energy. We can literally say, I notice these heavy thoughts. I don't choose them. The kids used to say to me to do everything in the name of the I am presence that I am. So in that case, you might just say, in the name of the I am presence that I am, I don't choose, or I choose loving, compassionate thoughts. I choose, because every single time we have those moments of choice, and we exercise that moment of choice, we're really recognizing what we actually are. We're not at the we're not at the mercy of all of these different energetic fields, whether they be our kids or anybody else's. It's just one opportunity after another to have a choice point. So take it. Take it.
Largely nonverbal 8-year-old girl I work with sometimes will let out a kind of wail and then take my hand and cup it under her chin and hold it there. It passes and then she carries on quite okay. But what is happening there with her? She doesn't cry as if it in pain, but it is a loud wail.
Mhm. Um, yeah. Hold on a second. It, to me anyway, in this case, it feels like a vocal, feels like so her field is wide open, as you know, and she's pulling in information from all kinds of different energetic environments and fields, whether she be physically in that environment or not. And it's almost like what she's showing me, she's pulling it in, pulling it in, pulling it in, pulling it in. And at some point, she's pulled in enough of that information that it's going to come up and through. It's almost like her way of transmuting that energy and grabbing your hand and, putting it up underneath her chin. It's just her way of moving that energy all the way through, letting you know that it has moved through. So yeah, it's interesting. She's pulling it, pulling it. It's almost like she pulls it into that horror line or that central column of light, and it builds, and then it's like I gotta move it through, and then she's ready to go again. It's a way of processing collective energy, is what she's showing me.
That is it on questions.
All right. Does anybody have anything else that they want to add? If you do, I'll give you a couple minutes to put it in the box, and in the meantime, will just check in and see if there's something that maybe the collective consciousness of the kids wants to talk about here before we close. Yeah, so again, a nice deep inhale and exhale for everybody. Let's just settle into our bodies. So what I'm hearing really clearly is we definitely have an acceleration coming up. I haven't looked at this beforehand, and it's just what's coming in the moment. So I don't have a whole lot of information right now anyway about that, but we were talking about it at the beginning of this call. So there's an acceleration of energy, and by acceleration of energy, that can play out in all kinds of ways. So let's say on a very human level, we have certain strategies that we use or certain behaviors that we use. Those behaviors or strategies might get ramped up for a little while. It's almost like they're speeding through a cycle. And the kids are just telling me to tell you on that level, if you notice that kind of thing, like where their energy just almost gets amped up. Number one, the cycle that they're moving through is ending. It's ramping up, might be a little bit more intense, but for a much shorter period of time. It's almost like they're exhausting all of the energy behind that pattern or that behavior. And so if it gets compressed all of a sudden, that's part of what they're talking about as far as this amping up energy. It's definitely correlated to spring, moving from spring into April. We know there's a lightening sometimes of being, just as we get into spring. This seems more significant than that. I will say this isn't just like the lightness of being that comes with having cleaned out all of the old. The kids are talking about this as like a ramp up. It's a ramp up in vibration. It's a ramp up in eliminating old patterns. It's a ramping up into different experiences or stages of not stages, different experiences within the fields of consciousness that you have access to. So I would even say that it's a possibility that you might have some uh, unique experiences, different experiences, maybe with the kids themselves and maybe separate from it, almost like if your consciousness had been held in a certain field and all of a sudden it just expanded, like it just went from, you know, a small size sphere and to doubling in size in a nanosecond. What information would be available to you in that moment that it expanded exponentially, and so they're talking about this coming in, in the next, in the next couple weeks or so. So yeah, maybe that's what I was feeling before I ever got on the call, because yeah. Yeah, so I would just be on the lookout for that. And again, really as at a behavioral level too, if this is happening more like in the behavioral realm, not getting anxious or upset thinking that there's a regression or there's a heightening of this energy. It's almost like you're gonna let it spin itself out. You're gonna let it wear itself out, and then it'll be done. If you add energy to it to try to stop it, you're just gonna prolong it. So don't. just let it spin itself out. Make everybody as comfortable as possible if it's behavioral in nature. Otherwise, yeah, get ready for takeoff, I think is the thing I would say. So
All right, there are good comments. We are almost through the online awesomism classes. We feel this energy acceleration big time.
yeah.
The next one is, so it feels like we may have made it through the dark night of the first quarter, maybe?
Well, by dark night of the first quarter, you mean first quarter of,
2021.
oh yeah, yeah, gotcha. Okay, so yes, and yes, and how about that? Like the yes and. So many people have been having experiences of dark nights of the soul. Many of the kids actually have been having really heavy challenges, definitely through 2020, this first quarter of 2021. And that is absolutely going to be lessening. And it'll lessen to the same degree that we kind of worked with the energy as we were moving through that dark night of the soul. You know, at the end of the day, everything is getting transmuted. Everything from everywhere. So it's all being transmuted, transformed. It's all coming into a higher frequency. So, and when we go through a dark night of the soul, collectively and personally, what ends up happening is we get like a deep run through of some of the more shadowy aspects of our experience. You know, we see where we go into fear or where we create from fear instead of creating from love. And so every time we have a compression like that, we get the opportunity to work through whatever part of that we do. And then we come out of it and it feels like, it feels like spring again. The sun comes out and it feels awesome. So, so, so we get these reprieves, right? We get these lessenings or lightening up of the energy so that we can kind of catch our breath. And then anytime we go back into another compression, another experience of the dark night of the soul, it's never going to be as it was before. They lessen and lessen, you know, to the place where you have people going through these little mini dark nights of the soul in a day, right? Versus, you know, 3 months or a whole year of dark night of the soul turns into ooh, I can feel this heaviness coming in. It's coming in, just like we were just talking about. It's pushing itself uh, deep in, through, and out. Yeah. So it's like compress, compress, compress. And the minute we kind of go, oh, okay, I can be with this too, it just opens back up. And then we've got that same energy of spring again. But it's happening in little micro movements. So, yes, to answer your question, it's both and. Yes, there is a lightening up, and we have made it through that dark night, if you will, of 2020. And it's likely that there will be waves of that kind of energy that ebb and flow. Um, you know, you'd like to give a time frame for these kinds of things, but really that's what life's about. You know, we move in and we process, we integrate, we become aware, and then we open it back up again into a bigger field. So a lot less of that after coming out of 2020. And yes, probably still more micro movements of that kind of energy as well. So, yeah.
All right. This question is with the child who wells.
Oh,
And it says, she repeatedly pulls her top up of her eyes and nose, burying her face in her top. What is happening for her?
yeah. I think it's just, again, it's, it could be that she's pulling through grief. It could be that she's just pulling through, or that she's just needing, she's just needing that space. It's like that whole covering of the face. She may be a soul who processes shame or guilt or that kind of energy through the collective. And as she's letting out that wail, right? As she's hiding her face, as she's holding under the chin, all of that posture. I mean, if you literally do that yourself, cover up your face, you'll be able to sense into exactly what energy field she's in when she does that. Yep. But the combination of, or at least what she's showing me, of the wail and having that hiding the face, as she probably does process collective shame, guilt, some of that lower frequency kind of energy. And it also might just be more comforting for her to be able to block out some of the outside world when she's moving that kind of energy than to be watched as she's doing it. So,
This other question is, she also has a brother that I find harder to understand as a teacher. He is often so distracted in his home, it is difficult to ground him. Just seems terribly bored.
he is terribly bored. Yeah. There's not a lot of understanding there, right, in that home as to the bigger version of either one of these kids, really. And so it's so in many ways, the only thing for him to do is kind of bounce around in the energies of everybody else in the household. Um, and it's kind of like watching the way he's showing it to me, it's kind of like watching a ping pong match, or it's like a point of reference moving between people, which on the one hand is extremely boring for him. There's so much more there for this kiddo, but there's really no, like you were saying, there's no reference point for who he is. I would, I don't know if you get to go out with him as well, get out and about with him, but somewhere, somewhere out in nature, somewhere where first he can clear his field, because he does have a tendency to just pick up everybody else's binging back and forth. And more so because he's giving it his attention because there's nothing else to do. But if you can get him outside and let him clear his field out in nature first, you might be able to start asking him some questions, or even maybe even bringing a different array of books on different subjects that you think he might be interested in. I'd get him definitely out of the house space, clear his field, and then open him up to some different opportunities. He definitely has interests. Like he's showing me space, both space travel and even celestial bodies and things like that. But he's definitely showing me that kind of energy. um yeah, it gives him a representation of himself as well, if I'm honest. It's like, there's a book I have, I think it's just called The Universe, and it's just all pictures of different nebulae and constellations, and it's really beautiful. I mean, the imagery is really gorgeous. But something like that, but his field has to be cleared first, because he's distracted and continues to be distracted even when you get him out. So we got to clear him out first, and then he might be willing to show you what he knows about some of those other things. So, yeah.
That is it.
The only other thing I'm going to add here is, when there's an acceleration, we can, through the lens of fear, we can say it's anxiety or stress or that kind of thing. And through the lens of love, we can say it's excitement. And so again, we were talking about choice. So let's choose to identify it as excitement, at least between now and springtime, so that that's the reflection that we get back. And even if the kids are kind of really amped up for a little period of time, it's like, I would even say to them, oh, it's exciting to move all this energy through. It's exciting to push this one right through. Yeah, there's something getting ready tip right over. So it's very cool. All right. I'm so glad you guys all made it today. Thanks for taking the time to ask your questions. And yeah, we'll see you next time. All right. Lots of love, everybody. Bye.